All right. Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshunamilitan Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namo. Hey, you want to give class? If you want to give class, you can give class, but otherwise you have to listen. Yam brahmajantam anupeta apeta krityam vapayano viraha katara ajuhava putreti tanmai tayataravo binedus tam sarvabhutam hridayam munimanatosmi Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshay Kiptaschakamari Tarangamadye Kripa Mai Tvam Sharanam Papanam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So we will begin as always by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta Om Vishnupad Asto Tarsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta Om Vishnupad Asto Tarsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj under our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga, all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Okay, so we have read about the offenses to Sri Harinam 1 through 8. So now in the discussion between Vijay Kumar Brajanath and Raghunath Das Babaji Maharaj in Navadvip from Jaiva Dharma, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, chapter 24, we're going to hear about the 9th and 10th offenses. So Vijay says, Prabhu, we have understood very well that there is nothing equal to Harinam, because in the 8th offense, it was equating the holy name with other different rituals recommended in the Vedic literature for different goals, right? Like yajna, sacrifice, homas, meditation, karma kanda activities, right? The material dharmas that are recommended as part of the dharma, artha, kama, moksha cycle. But we're pursuing the pancha purushartha, the highest goal, not the purusharthas that keep us in the cycle of samsara, but that goal and that practice which takes us completely beyond that, and which is not only something wonderful to be looked forward to at some future date, but as we progress in bhakti, it far surpasses any pleasure or anything, any goal or any happiness in this world, right? Harinam is such a marvelous thing. So, 9th offense, Babaji Maharaj responds, of all the various instructions in the Vedas, the instructions on Harinam are the most important. And only those who have faith in exclusive bhakti are qualified to hear Sri Nam's glories. Okay. So there's a relationship between Shuddha Bhakti and Shuddha Nam. We talk about Nama Aparadha, Nama Bas. There's also Aparadha in Bhakti and Bhakti Bas as well. Until one comes to the platform of Bhav Bhakti, one's Bhakti is actually Bhakti Bas. That's not to say that it's not worthy. On the platform of Madhyam, many wonderful results and experiences are there. But unless and until one has awakened and realized one's internally perfected identity, then that bhakti that's one's doing is still on the sadhana stage, preliminary sadhana stage, and it's not pure bhakti, right? However, the eligibility for Harinam, because Harinam is very merciful, the mercy of Harinam extends down to everyone on any stage of life. But in order to give instructions, in order to know who is a worthy recipient, to have the secrets of Harinam explained, they have to have some faith. And he's going to explain why. It is an offense to give instruction on Harinam to those who do not have faith, who are averse to the transcendental service of Hari, or who have no taste for hearing Nam. It is beneficial to give instruction that Harinam is the most exalted of all spiritual practices, and that all who accept Harinam will become most fortunate. But one should not give such instructions on Harinam to the unqualified. Right? When you become a Parama Bhagavat, topmost Bhagavat, then you will also be able to transmit Shakti. Such a great Vaishnava can first create faith in Sri Nam by bestowing spiritual Shakti on the Jivas, and after that instruct them about Harinam. However, as long as you remain a Madhyam Vaishnava, you must neglect those who are faithless, disinterested, and envious. So that's a very subtle instruction, because we are part of Mahaprabhu's movement. Mahaprabhu's movement is meant to spread the glories of Harinam everywhere, right? And yet, one without faith, everybody's without faith, right? It seems, right? Everybody's envious of the Lord. I'm envious of the Lord still, you know. So what is the practical application of that, right? But there are gradations of instruction, like the commentaries we heard earlier on the holy name involved confidential information about Krishna in that name, about Radhika in that name, about their loving affairs in Madhurya Ras. That's not meant to be instructed, right, to faithless persons. But, you know, the idea of just saying, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. We can do that, right? Somebody might object to that, might not want to follow it, but what can they do? I mean, they can criticize Harinam, but you can just leave that place. We go out and chant publicly. We give out cards with Maha Mantra on it. That is some level of instruction, because we're being encouraged by our gurus to do such an activity. And actually, our experience in going out publicly preaching under the instruction of Srila Prabhupada was that it says that a Mahabhagavat can give Shakti and can instill faith, right? But I had seen that devotees of Srila Prabhupada were empowered by him to give Shakti and to instill faith. When, you know, this is why he is called Nityananda Avesh, the empowered, you know, he's like Shakti Avesh. He was empowered by Lord Nityananda to do as Lord Nityananda and Mahaprabhu did, by touching souls everywhere and giving them the strength to go and touch souls, who then were enlivened and went and touched souls. So Srila Prabhupada's disciples, even though very new and very young, were able to go out very quickly and start new temples. And actually, devotees came everywhere because they took up the instruction. They had such faith in their guru that guru empowered them, right? But still, we have to be cautious. You don't instruct, like you don't go out and which I have to say, unfortunately, that many over-enthusiastic, well, you can't be over-enthusiastic, but your enthusiasm can be misapplied. Especially disciples of Srila Bhaktivinoda and Narayan Goswami Maharaj, they would go out and start instructing. You'd see them preaching to somebody, beginning with chanting of Hare Krishna, and within 5 minutes, we're actually all gopis and talking about Radha and Krishna's Leela in Vrindavan. That's inappropriate. That's inappropriate. You don't want to make that kind of jump. Whenever you're preaching about Harinam, very carefully consider the qualification. And since most people fall under the category of innocent or uneducated or envious, you have to be very cautious when you're instructing such people. Innocent people, you can encourage more about the glories of the holy name, but keep it simple. And envious people, there's no real benefit. You can be kind to them. You can say something like, oh, just chant Hare Krishna, be happy. But to get into prolonged debates with them is detrimental for them because they're going to commit offense to that holy name and impede their progress even further, or commit offense to pure devotees. So generally, it's like a bee also. A bee goes from flower to flower, but they don't waste much time on flowers that have no nectar, or flowers that look pretty but are actually not the right kind of flower that they should feed from. They may go, touch it, and then move on. But they'll stay at the flowers that are eligible to take their services. Because the bee is actually the servant of the flowers. The flowers are giving something. They're offering their pollen, right, their nectar, and the bees are transmitting that and taking it to other flowers and helping those flowers to germinate, right, to grow more. If there are no bees, there would be no flowers. There would be no fruits. And so if there are no bees preaching, going from flower to flower, then there would be no joy in the world. So we have to at least touch and taste so we can see who's eligible, who's receptive, and who's not. The main instruction for us is to, if people are very adverse and critical, then you don't waste your time with them. I can tell you so many times we just wasted time debating with people because we wanted to feed everybody. And useless, it doesn't work. You're just spending your time on a bad flower when you could go to so many other flowers, right? So, you must neglect those who are faithless, disinterested, and envious, right? So, preaching Harinam to the faithless. So Vijay says, how should we understand the behavior of those who give Harinam to unqualified people out of greed for wealth, name, and fame? So in other words, sometimes people take on the role of guru, and then they they may have been sincere initially, but then they're thinking, oh, I have to initiate this person. If I don't initiate them, somebody else might. And they have a lot of money. We need to get that money for our mission. I remember in Bangalore, after Gurudev had given permission to his sannyasis to initiate, and after he himself had left, some of the local devotees were encouraging me to initiate this person or that person. And I said, well, I'm not really qualified. And they said, oh, doesn't matter. You have to initiate them, because if you don't, then somebody else will come and initiate them, and then they'll give their money to somebody else. There are people that come into our mat, and so they should give our donations here. I said, wait a minute, that's not how we work. I said, look over there. Who's on the altar there? I said, that's Radha and Krishna, right? So who's maintaining? Is it this guy or that guy, Dr. So-and-so, big businessman, this guy? Or is it Srimati Radharani? I said, if we follow her instructions nicely, through our Guru Parampara, become nice Rupanugas, do we ever have to worry about anything? If we're following their plan, then don't we become appropriate agents for fulfilling their desires? We're not doing anything independently. I said, have you ever missed a meal here? Does the roof leak? Do you have a place to sleep? Everything's going on, right? Just have faith in the process, right? Do it properly. Said, I'm not going to initiate people just because they have money. And I know back in the day when some of my godbrothers were first initiating, it was all so new. They were so new. I mean, they had been in the movement at most 8 to 10 years, right? And coming from the background that all did, they didn't know very much. And they were at most early 30s, right? Many in their 20s. And all of a sudden they were taking on the mantle of Jagat Guru, thinking they had to imitate Srila Prabhupada's actions and ways of doing things, and even accepting worship on the level that Srila Prabhupada did. And there was competition. Who's got the most disciples? And they were just running here and there and everywhere. And that happens a lot. Sometimes it's the sincerity to give this gift of bhakti to as many people as possible, right? So that enthusiasm may be motivated by that. But Srila Prabhupada warns in his purports in the Nectar of Instruction, right, Sri Upadeshamrita by Rupa Goswami, that the immature, disciple, somebody who's only on Kanishta or Madhyam, should be very cautious about initiating, should not take very many disciples at all. And they shouldn't take disciples beyond their own qualification. In other words, a Madhyam can accept somebody up to Madhyam, a Kanishta. How could they help a Madhyam? How could they help somebody higher than them? And even the Madhyam, Srila Prabhupada says, they can only help them advance only up to a minor stage, not very. He says they can't make high advancement under their insufficient guidance. Right? So if you start taking disciples or giving Harinam out of desire, then they'll become my follower, then I'll become famous, so many people will be following me, then Babaji says that is Nama Aparadha in itself. That is a form of that very same Nama Aparadha, preaching to the unqualified. Even though it appears that you're doing this out of desire to fulfill Mahaprabhu's mission, you're actually committing Nama Aparadha. Just like anybody can chant Hare Krishna, but if you're chanting and absorbed in any of the previous 9 offenses, your chanting is not effective. So, then he says, please explain the 10th offense. Babaji says, people in this material world think, I am such and such a person. This wealth, sons, and relatives are all mine. They're madly engrossed in such material consciousness. If by coincidence they hear the glories of Harinam from learned people, a moment of renunciation or knowledge may appear. But then if they knowingly do not keep their attachment for Sri Nam, they are also Nam Aparadhis. Therefore it is said in the 2nd shloka of Shikshashtaka, Nam Akari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis, Tartrarpita Niyamatak Smarane Nakala, Etaddrashi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi, Durdaivam Idarsham Ihajani Nanuraga. O Bhagavan, you have manifested yourself in various names, such as Krishna, Govinda, Gopal, Vanamali. Oh, Vanamali, that was the name of that devotee I was trying to remember yesterday. Vanamali, yeah. Vanamali and so on. The Guyana devotee, Mr. Fix-It. Okay. You've manifested in various names, Krishna, Govinda, Gopal, Vanamali, and so on. You have invested all your Shaktis in these names, and there is no question of improper time or place for remembering Sri Nam. You are so causelessly merciful. But unfortunately, because of my aparadhas, I have no taste for Sri Harinam, whom you have made so easily available. Right? Why do we not have taste? Because we have taste for other things. To the degree that we have taste for material stuff, that's going to impede our taste for Sri Nam. So Babaji Maharaj explains that one should remain free from the 10 kinds of Nama Aparadha and engage in Harinam. If one does so, Sri Nam will swiftly award you his mercy in the form of prem and transform you into a Parama Bhagavat. Sometimes that is translated to maintain material attachments even after having received the beautiful gift of Harinam. And that's a tough one. It's very difficult because even while we're chanting, our material attachments go running through the mind, don't they? You know, oh, I remember I'd like this. I want to do bhakti, but I'd also like this. You know, and we kind of want some of this and some of that. Or we want the fruits of pure bhakti, but we don't want to give up our other attachments. There's a story to help illustrate that. You know how they catch monkeys? These monkeys that are creating a problem. They'll take a coconut and they'll cut a small hole in it, just big enough for a monkey to put its hand in if it goes like this. And inside the coconut, there'll be a nice sweet or something the monkey wants. And so the monkey, and they'll nail the coconut down, right? Attach it to a log or something. So then the monkey comes, he puts his hand in and he grabs it, right? And then the hunter or the monkey gatherer comes and the monkey wants to run away, but he won't let go of the sweet. And as long as he's making a fist, he can't get his hand out of the coconut. So he could be saved if he would give up the sweet, but he can't give up the sweet. So then the hunter comes with a club, whacks it on the head, or puts it in a sack or whatever, and the monkey gets caught. So it's the same with us, right? We're holding on to different things. It's different. Well, it's the same for everybody, but it takes different shapes, right? Wealth, men and women, different kinds of attachments, material things. We've all got them, right? My friend came yesterday, and my old friend from high school, we joined together, been my lifelong friend. And I have this really nice computer here, right? But he also had an Apple computer. And I said, wow, yours is really heavy. Why? He goes, oh, it's a Mac Pro. And I looked at it, and it had all these things that mine doesn't have, extra attachments and all like that. And I thought, ooh, I've only got a Mac Air. He's got a Mac Pro. Oh, if I was rich, I could have a Mac Pro. I couldn't even get this. Somebody bought it for me, so I do these classes, right? How many things have we had? And we think if I just had one more thing, I'd be happy, but it never works. You get that thing, and then I'm not completely happy. Oh, I need that thing, He also gave me this. Years ago, he gave me this iPhone 6 that he wasn't using anymore, and my phone was breaking down, so he gave me that. And it wasn't being updated and it was old. And he got a new phone and they gave me his 12, which is really nice, small, like I like, right? I thought, oh yeah, this is the best it could be, But then he's got something else, which is, I don't know what it is. I don't know what the next small one is that can do more, this and that. And so I looked on this website that sells refurbished stuff and I was looking at the prices of all of that. And I don't have any money, so I couldn't get it or anything. But I was thinking, oh, if I had one of those. Because this one broke for a while. It was breaking. I thought, oh, man, it's finished. What am I going to do? So I was looking at other phones. But I know even if I got the latest and the greatest, in another year, they make it, they make an improvement. And some new little bell or whistle on the next phone or computer or whatever it is. And you think, oh, I need that. I got to have that. That's what drives the economy. That drives the world. People just want the next thing and the next and the next. And that impedes our chanting. Even though we know it's not going to help us, still, these things are there. But the holy name, Sanatana Goswami, he threw away the touchstone. He was completely satisfied in chanting. He had nothing materially. At most, they had a bhajan kuti made out of, sticks and leaves. Sometimes they would just sleep under a different tree every night. They had no attachment in this world at all, not seeking anything. They're completely satisfied in what? In serving Radha and Krishna by chanting their name, making that connection, being with Krishna and serving him in the greatest way. Krishna enjoys the chanting of the holy name. Radhika enjoys hearing the chanting of Krishna's name. Krishna enjoys hearing Radhika's name, knowing the intimate meanings of these names and remembering their beautiful pastimes together. It's the greatest service that we can do. And that's why, our great acharyas, they could sit for days and chant if they wanted. But being so aligned with the desires of the Lord, they also want to share this with the unfortunate and unhappy conditioned souls. Sanatana Goswami spoke to Haridas Thakur, or is it Mahaprabhu? I think both. Anyway, that you are, some people, practice very nicely, and others preach, but you have not only perfect behavior, but you also have compassion, and you're sharing this with others. So we know that Namacharya Haridas Thakur was chanting 3 lakhs a day, which is like 3 times 64 rounds. It's a huge amount of rounds. And yet he was also wandering here and there and instructing others in proper behavior, helping and uplifting others. Even those who were his enemies, he was trying to help and uplift. He was praying for the benefit of those who were trying to kill him. Oh Lord, when they're beating him in the marketplaces, 21 marketplaces, or 23 marketplaces, I can't remember. Anyway, oh, they're so ignorant. Please don't punish them. Please just give them your mercy. And Mahaprabhu recounted that to him later on, and saying, oh, when I saw your prayer, I wanted to come and kill those persons who are beating you. But your prayer for their deliverance, it moved me. So instead I came and I took the blows on my own back. And so this is the nature of great Mahabhagavats. They're always compassionate because they're not envious. Envy comes from somebody having something that you want. Because we can't have all our desires fulfilled, and if somebody has things that we want, either a quality or an object or a possession or a status or a house or whatever it is, we're envious of them. Reputation, name, beauty, whatever the opulences are, if somebody has something that we don't have, we become jealous. So you should know that whenever you're angry at something, you have to go, why am I angry at that person? Anger is usually a byproduct of envy.
What's the difference between jealousy and envy?
Between what and envy?
Jealousy and envy.
They're pretty much the same. Pretty much the same, jealousy and envy.
But transcendentally, there's good jealousy.
What's that?
Spiritually, there's jealousy.
Oh, well, yeah.
There's not envy.
No. The words are interchangeable in the English language. And many of the emotions and qualities that we experience in the material world have their spiritual counterpart. But the spiritual counterparts are simply transformations of prema. They don't manifest and create the same feeling that we have. Our jealousy is because we're always seeking our own fulfillment and our own happiness. Everything is directed by the false ego to ourselves, to our own body, our own senses. In the spiritual world, there's the jealousy is actually a transformation of love for Krishna, right? And it doesn't have the same negative connotations that it has here. It actually inspires one to do even more service and to strive more for Krishna's happiness. And when Radhika, for instance, the highest example, when she goes into man is sometimes translated as sulky anger created by jealousy, right? oh, Krishna's with this gopi or that gopi. But what is the underlying intent of Radhika in feeling like that? She's feeling, why is he with her? I can give him so much more pleasure. Chandravali doesn't understand the transformations of prema like I do. And remember, Chandravali is her own expansion. She's created all of the different varieties of gopis are expansions from Srimati Radhika to create varieties of service for Krishna and to create a sense of what Srila Prabhupada called transcendental competition. Like the cowherd boys, seeing Krishna at the distance, running. I will run and catch Krishna and touch him first. No, I will. No, I will. And they're all running to compete to give Krishna pleasure and happiness because Krishna's astonished and overjoyed by their eagerness to be with him and to serve him and to love him. And so that creates in Krishna a desire to reciprocate. So the emotions in the spiritual world, they only have a vitiated or degraded or perverted counterpart in this world. This material energy, the transformation of the Sarup Shakti, Satchidananda, the way it manifests in this world is a perverted form, like Sat, right? Sandini Shakti, existence. It becomes perverted to the sense that we identify our existence as being, I'm this body, right? And in the material world, everything is eternal. Sat means eternal. In this world, our sense of existence is identifying with the body, which is temporary. Although the soul, by nature, is eternal, fights against that. Even the ant will fight against being killed, right? Because the soul doesn't want to be killed. It wants to be eternal. But in the material world, as long as we identify with the body, it can't. Knowledge. Knowledge, again, in the spiritual realm is based on who am I, what is my relationship with Krishna, what is my service to Krishna, right? What are my talents and ways in which I can make Krishna and all his devotees happy? In this world, knowledge is very limited to the things that we can acquire through our own senses, through our own intelligence. And again, it's directed towards the false ego. It's self-serving in that very limited way. And the object of connection that Samvit Shakti does, Samvit Shakti connects us with Krishna in a particular rasa. It just connects us with other conditioned souls in the rasa that we have with them. So it's perverted. And then Ananda, right, Ladini Shakti, that current of joy that comes in the loving exchange between Krishna and his devotees. Here, our Ananda comes from tasting temporary material objects by our senses or enjoying with other conditioned souls. But that joy is very limited, very temporary, and it's mostly impelled by desire and need and unhappiness, right? Like, why do we take pleasure in eating? Because we're impelled by hunger. But as soon as the hunger is gone, you can't take any pleasure in eating anymore. That's why even on a day when we make lasagna, there's leftovers. Because people, oh, this is great, but there's a limit, right? Right? Can't. Even when Mangalagit makes that great soup, it makes that much. So even though that much is taken, we have a limit, right? Have a limit how much we can enjoy. No longer pleasurable, because the pleasure is impelled by desire and the senses have a limit, right? So you become indifferent, even to the most delicious foods. And the same thing, even the greatest pleasures in this world. People enjoy sex life, but how much sex can they have before they're exhausted, right? And as they grow older and older, their capacity diminishes, right? And then the desire is no longer there, the pleasure is no longer there. Accumulation of wealth. They try and try and try, but it never satisfies them, no matter how many houses they buy, how many cars, how many wives. It just doesn't satisfy them, right? And so pleasure in this world is perverted. It's impelled by need, right? And when the needs are satisfied, then there's no more pleasure in that. Right? So the last thing that Vijay says is that I can now understand that Mayavadis, Karmis, and Yogis are all offenders to Sri Nam. Since this is the case, is it proper for pure Vaishnavas to participate when many people congregate to perform Nam Kirtan? This is really important. So should we do Nam Kirtan with Mayavadis, Karmis, and Yogis who are offenders to Sri Nam, chanting for completely different reasons, right? Babaji says, it is not proper for Vaishnavas to participate in Sankirtan groups in which Nam Aparadhis are prominent and the lead singer is a Nam Aparadhi. Right? There's many Kirtan groups and festivals all over the world now, Bhakti fests. But they're not real Bhakti fests. They're Bhakti Abbas, Pratibimba Bhakti. And in that, they're doing all the offenses, like they're chanting the names of the demigods on the same level as Krishna, right? We honor Lord Shiva, right? We honor all the demigods, but in their role as devotees. But they make no such discrimination. And ultimately, they think that the chanting of the holy name is something we're doing now, and when we get liberated, we won't be doing it anymore because it's a temporary sadhana. And they're doing it for name and fame and wealth and everything that we've been reading about. These are the qualities of Nama Aparadhis, right? And you don't want to be in a kirtan with these people, even though they may be very expert musicians, have very good voices, even if they're chanting Hare Krishna, especially, then you don't want to hear that kirtan because their moods will come into your heart. He says, however, there is no fault in participating in Sankirtan groups in which pure Vaishnavas or general bhaktas who are Nam Abbasis are prominent. So we're not pure Vaishnavas, maybe Nam Abbasis. We can do in those kirtans. On the contrary, in such Sangha, there will be gain in the form of Ananda in Nam Sankirtan. Now it is late. Tomorrow I will speak to you on Nam Abbas. So, when we have these gatherings, right, like the Keturi Kirtan Festival, I had a talk before we had it again, because I was concerned about some of the people that might be leading, right? Because some of them, the people that attended, aren't just Aparadhis. They're Mayavadis. But they come and they enjoy the kirtans. You can go on YouTube and watch these kind of groups. And the way they dance, the way they sing, all of it. It's so clearly mundane material and offensive. But Malini was very careful that there are people that are not necessarily in our Sangha, but have been associating for some time and have faith in Harinam. They have faith. And you could see over the years how their faith has grown and even the quality of their kirtan. And those people were allowed something to chant in the association with other devotees, right? But she's careful not to let just, Mayavadis and others chant. And I've heard Srila Gurudev give that instruction as well, right? To some of his people that are kirtaniyas. That don't associate and chant. Like some of them would go to these festivals and be backup singers and backup instruments for these Nama Aparadha singers because the devotees are really good musicians. And so they said, hey, if you can be my backup band, you can also chant. And so they're thinking, well, okay, they'll give us a spot on stage. All I got to do is be their backup band, when they sing. That's kind of dangerous. Okay, yeah, you get to sing and to spread the holy name that way, but then you're associating with and hearing these people, and that's very dangerous because you associate with Mayavads, the soul's like the crystal. Whatever color the crystal is held next to, it takes on that quality. So you have to be very careful about this, right? Even at the risk of offending others. Oh, you can't chant with us, you're so much better. You just be humble, You don't, it just, when Nama Aparadhis are singing the Hare Krishna mantra, their moods are in that mantra. It's infected with their material tastes, their material desires. It's not Shuddhanam. It's not Nama Bas, it's Nama Aparadha. And you see devotees or general audiences dancing and jumping up and down, but where's the taste coming from? Is it coming from the pure name, or is it coming from the music? Sometimes you see videos of big kirtan groups, and young devotees are doing all this kind of crazy dancing, like break dancing and spinning around and handstands, and everybody's in a big circle, their backs to the deities, going, hoo, 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 just enjoying this gymnastic display, but not really understanding what's going on with Sri Nam. Or they do rap, right? And other things. And then you see people going, oh, 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 oh. I remember being at one festival and one person, who's a nice devotee, was singing some song of angst, some self-composed song about the miseries of the material world, and singing and strumming and I forget what kind of rock it's called. Anyway, just and all these really young devotees were in the audience, just gyrating and dancing. And I went, ugh, icky. Maybe go off on your own place and do that. Okay, that's your Ras, but it wasn't transcendental. On the other hand, at that same festival, another devotee came, a disciple of Gurudev also, who had a rock band in the 90s. He was very famous, right? And they recently went on a revival tour. And he would sing with his rock band songs related to spirituality, but he would also sing Govinda Jaya Jaya, that was his favorite one. And he was really good at it. And, he had a lot of people chanting. And he was chanting sincerely. And he also did kirtan. And it was very blissful, because of a very different mood. So it's not opposed necessarily the instruments and all. I remember when the road show, this rock opera had been written by a devotee, and back in the very early 70s, 71, late 71, and they went on the road going to college campuses, and they did a rock opera, because that was popular back then. A lot of big groups were doing that, right? And it was a whole story, kind of like Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the search of the soul. And then the soul meets Vishnu Jan on stage, who preaches to him, and then he takes them to Radha Damodar, the deities. And it was all really beautiful. There's some beautiful songs written, And, Srila Prabhupada said, okay, very nice. But then gradually, the taste for the rock and roll and that kind of music became dominant. And the devotees, who are all very young devotees, and who had been musicians, start playing more and more wild rock and roll. And then Srila Prabhupada came to one festival, and they were there. And Srila Prabhupada came in, and they did this song called Jagat Guru, but it was all these big guitar, and it was really loud, and all the devotees were, not all the devotees, but many were just experiencing the material ras and enjoying it. Because it's hard to let that go if you're just a year or two outside of that, being a hippie. But Srila Prabhupada was not very appreciative of that. He made that known. And then gradually the whole thing degenerated and just became this really weird kind of noir play. Dark play, and they took the deities out, and then Srila Prabhupada said, just disband it. He shut it down. It was no longer. We can dovetail to a certain extent these propensities, right, in music and other things. But you have to stay really close to the line. And really the best is just traditional kirtan. That's what Srila Prabhupada said. This is where the potency really lies, right? So all this other stuff with guitars and all that, all right, if you're sincerely trying to chant the holy name and you're keeping it simple. But when you get all off with all kinds of crazy instrumentation and you lose your focus on the holy name, or you're completely caught up in, oh, that deity is singing so beautifully, and you like to listen. Men like to listen to the sound of women singing, and women like to listen to the sound of men singing. And the men are saying, oh, they're listening to me so nicely, and the ladies are thinking like that. Now, I'm not one to judge. I can't tell what anybody's mood is, except my own. And I know that when you get too far afield, it affects. We'll know that we're making progress in our chanting the closer we and the more dear traditional tunes and traditional instrumentation appeals to us, right? Because our acharyas did write very specific ragas and tunes, and there was very specific kind of instrumentation, mridanga, harmonium some, kartals, but the further afield we get, we're getting distracted by so many other things rather than the holy name, right? So all of this ties in. So I guess I should stop here. Kind of gone far afield in one sense, let's say. So we'll offer obeisance to Srila Prabhupada, beg his forgiveness for our own lack of appreciation for Shuddhanam. Srila Gurudev encouraging us in the same way. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, our acharyas. All glories to the pure holy name. May Krishnanam give us shelter at his lotus feet. May Srimati Radhika engage us in their service. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.